Welcome to the Titans of Palm Beach with your host, Jay Oliver, on 95.9 and 106.9, the True Oldies channel. Talking with the movers and shakers that make South Florida as amazing as it is. Now, here's your host, Jay Oliver.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Another edition of Titans of the Palm Beach. Is Jay Oliver, indeed, here at the True Oldies channel each and every week. We give you a little mover, a little shaker, as far as the great city of West Palm Beach is concerned. And we got a good one today. In fact, we are going to be talking marital and family law. And that with Stevens and Stevens, spelled differently, I might add. That's P-H-E-N-S and E-V-E-N-S. Stevens and Stevens, Eddie and Karen, welcome to the studios of the True Oldies channel. Karen, great to have you.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. And I am the Stevens with the V.
There you go. And P.H. Stevens.
Yeah, I'm the one that spells it right. I'm Eddie. Nice to be here.
Founding partners.
Yes.
Of Stevens and Stevens. Now, do you guys go way back as far as knowing each other? I mean, it's wild. Same pronunciation, I mean, different spelling, but tell me the relationship. How did it start?
Beautiful coincidence. People confuse us, think we're in some other relationship, but it's strictly professional. We tell people we are married just to other people.
Steven, excuse me, Eddie, come clean now. I mean, you know, listen, the different spelling of the names, listen, I get it. You know, it's a good one.
I thought it was a fun marketing, but we started practicing 4 years ago where we started working together. And I have been doing this a long time, trying to find someone that I can actually put up with. And I don't know your experience with attorneys, but it was a long search for me to find someone that looked at the law and ethics in kind of the same way I did. And that was 4 years ago, and now we are equal partners of a law firm and trying to do our best here in Palm Beach County. 4
years and running, Karen.
Yes.
It all began way back 4 years ago.
It did. Eddie hired me, but the funny story that a lot of people don't know.
He hired you in his firm?
He hired me. We were at another law firm, and he hired me to work for him.
Wow.
Yeah. But the interesting story a lot of people don't know is Eddie actually interviewed me about 10 years ago and didn't hire me the first time.
What happened then?
I had no recollection of that, but it was somewhere in my quest to find someone to go on this journey with. And Karen was just out of law school, and she reminded me of this and actually showed me the thank you letter she wrote me after the interview. But it was just wasn't the time for us to.
We had to find each other at a different point in our life.
You
Apparently,
know what I call this? I call this destiny.
So our paths crossed, and then we learned a whole lot.
Stars have been aligned 4 years prior.
Second time's the charm in this one. So
Karen didn't even become a lawyer at that point. I don't know if it was my interview, but she went into the mental health business, and where she got skills which are invaluable to being a divorce attorney.
Yeah.
It was that interview. No, I'm just kidding. I ran away and came back, and we found each other again. So yeah.
Eddie, 25 years litigation experience.
In Palm Beach, all of family law.
Are you a Florida guy from way back?
6 generations.
Wow. Karen, you too?
Native. 2 natives in one room. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild stuff.
Yep. Not as long a legacy, but definitely a native.
Marital and family law. Karen, what are your qualifications in that? I mean, you can go anywhere with that, right? I mean, it's pretty intricate.
I mean, like Eddie said, I had a background in doing mental health. I was a therapist, a guidance counselor. I sort of still do the same thing. I just do it as
the same, right?
Marital,
right?
Very much. I use my skill set every day. I listen to the same stuff. I just have a lot more power to help create some change now as an attorney.
Is marital law pretty much, Eddie, is it all about divorce? Is it all about estate?
It's either about money or kids.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the actual divorce. It could be, if people want to fight and they had a marriage and kids, they have that opportunity. We try to dissuade that, especially when there's kid issues. But in our world, there's just people that cannot agree.
Yeah.
And our world is kind of getting more dysfunctional.
I was going to say, Karen, it's probably amplified more because of the pandemic. I mean, my goodness.
There was a lot of those memes at the beginning.
Way too much quarantine, way too much getting to know each other, and I would think way too much divorce based on that, right? There was
a lot of that at the beginning of the pandemic.
Wow, I really learned about, something? I want out.
Yeah, no, you'd see the memes at the beginning. It was like all the divorce lawyers sitting around waiting for the pandemic or the quarantine to end.
Chops, you guys.
Yeah, it definitely created a lot of discord in marriages that maybe wasn't already there or amplified what wasn't moved there, but we kind of saw, everybody pause, the world pause, but everybody's kind of back on life. And, we do a lot of prenups and stuff too, and we had no weddings going on. It was an interesting time in our practice.
That's wild stuff.
Yeah.
Is divorce, divorce is the final frontier, so to speak. Is it at all costs to try and avoid? If you're a couple, let's say you're meeting with a couple, Eddie, and it's a contentious relationship. Let's say it's, 30 plus years, and maybe there's no way back. Is it worth to save? From a financial aspect of it.
Well, everybody's a little different, and there's always a joke, it's cheaper to stay married. But, you put a price tag on your happiness and your future, and, we are not here to be the deciders if your marriage is over. We're just here to guide you through the process if you decide it is. Yeah. And, my personal belief is it's way too easy to get divorced in Florida. You just have to, pay a filing fee. Other states put up some obstacles, but that's not our job. Our job is, to guide you through.
Kind of lay it out for you. You guys, you're not counselors. You're not marriage counselors.
No.
Well, Karen's licensed.
Right? Karen, you
licensed.
could probably pass for that. Right?
Yeah, no, I can, but I'm sitting in the lawyer hat.
What about you? Does your back days of counseling kind of somehow intervene in the legal sense of what you currently do?
More that I think it just created me to have a good skill set of listening, having empathy for people, recognizing where people are at and trying to get them to a better situation. I do the same thing as an attorney now. They come in my office, they're at whatever point in their relationship, and I try to have them in a better place when they leave me. But yeah, definitely all those listening skills, body language, all the things that you learn as a therapist. I see it every day.
Stevens and Stevens, ladies and gentlemen, marital and family law. Where are you located?
We are right here in West Palm Beach. Our office is right off
office?
Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard area, off of Village, right in the central area there, close to 95.
There you go.
Yep.
And the specialty, of course, is marital and family law. Eddie, the intricacies of divorce. You're saying it's easy to get, pretty much. Is it more easier now than the old days?
Well, way back when, you used to have a reason to get divorced, like adultery or cruelty or abandonment. Now you just have to say your marriage is broken and be a resident.
Irreconcilable differences, that type of thing?
And be a resident for 6 months before you file. But then the process, depending on the personalities and what you have to sever, the ties, it could be pretty complicated.
And it becomes intricate, right? Yeah. Karen, based on the kids and ages, that type of thing?
Because you have divorces and you have paternity. And what paternity is when people don't get married but have children together. So it cuts down the issues we got to deal with, because you're not dealing with assets and things, but you're still dealing with kids and time sharing, custody, money, same sorts of stuff, just not married. And so divorce, you got to deal with all the assets and distribution of liabilities. And, we live in a world right now where a lot of people are liability heavy, especially after the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's a crazy world.
Is it more divorce now than it ever was, you think?
Well, we never slowed down after the pandemic, and going to, courts kind of went to Zoom instead of being in person, and that changed the amount of volume we can do, because instead of driving somewhere...
A lot of backlog still in the courts, right?
Well, there'll always be a backlog, but instead of taking 4 hours to do a little hearing, we can just pop on the Zoom and do it in 18 minutes or less. So we're doing a lot more work. It's just from our office instead of driving around everywhere.
Yeah. We're able to cover cases in other parts of the state, too, because we were just hopping on from our computer, which gave us a little bit more exposure out there.
And it's always got to be tough, though, with the Zoom stuff, right? Because I would think you want to sit down face-to-face with individuals, right?
So
emotionally,
hard.
everything.
Hard.
Well, if I'm cross-examining someone, I want to do it in person, because I want the judge to see their demeanor, and them flinching, their eyes batting, and, if you have a background, it kind of blurs out everything, and it's really hard to tell someone's facial expression. So, when this is all over, people are asking, are we all going to be doing this from video conferencing? And some of it will be, but I still think, trials and the presentation of evidence will all be live and still in the courtrooms.
You get a lot of cases, Karen, where you have couples that come in, one maybe not so sure they want to go through with this, the other, you know what, slam dunk, let's do it. But then I would think especially with you, that's where the counseling kind of comes in,
Yeah.
right? And then you got to try and put that aside for a second, right?
So we normally meet with just one of the parties. So we're going to have the husband or the wife or the two wives or whatever the situation is. We're going to have one of the parties sitting in front of us. And obviously, if they're sitting in my office, most of the time they come to us is they're the one choosing to make this step in their life. But oftentimes we get the party who just got served. Those are some of the most difficult cases because they're the ones that say to you, I didn't know this was coming. I didn't know he was mad.
Surprise?
Yeah.
Really?
The ding dong while the kids go to school and mom's in the doorway. We've seen those.
It's not so much a surprise anymore because, like when you get a speeding ticket and you get all those males that, hire a lawyer, they do that for divorces now too.
It's terrible.
So a lot of people, if their spouse files, they'll go in the public records and send a little notice, and that's how the other spouse learns that a divorce has been filed from one of these tacky little mailers from an attorney. It's
creates quite a dynamic in the house.
Now, what is the average time frame as far as finalization? The minute they come in till, you know what?
That's our favorite question.
Till the old decree comes in blood.
It's up to them. We can go at whatever speed. If they agree, we can do it pretty quickly. We have to do due diligence, which is like making sure what they say is accurate. That can be done within a month.
I hear it's faster with you guys, Stephen and Stevens, than it is to go to Costa Rica.
You can get married in Costa Rica.
You guys have a reputation,
you can't get divorced there.
That's why I want to do this interview. I got to be honest with you.
We appreciate that, and it's we always say to people like you can hire us, and there's the two of us, and then you've got the other party and their lawyer. So you're dealing with the speeds of both sides, and sometimes things just take forever because people don't do what they're supposed to do. But I've had divorces last several years depending on the situation.
Does it get sticky with young kids as far as
money and kids? It depends on what motivates you. Some people are hyper vigilant and trying to protect their children and think they know what's best. But when you spawn in Florida, even if you're a bad parent, you have a constitutional right to be heavily involved in that kid's life. So, people fighting for supervised time sharing, it's really hard to do that unless there's a real safety concern.
Yeah, I would think.
People will spend their fortune fighting on kid issues. And you can see that as a parent from that perspective, but they will spend their last dime on fighting a time-sharing issue or custody versus like assets. You have what you have, you figure it out, but the kids, it's always intense.
Do you ever make a determination as far as custody? And that's always tough, right? Because, you might have a father who says, you know what, I want custody, or I want 3 days a week. And, that's got to be a tough determination in the courts as far as that split.
Well, there's a law that's right before the governor, and it reforms alimony, and it creates a presumption that time sharing is 50-50.
Really?
And our society, traditionally, we have like a hunter-gatherer society where someone's the breadwinner and someone typically cares for the children. But this law would basically start off with the presumption that both parents are going to have equal responsibility with those, all of those child-rearing obligations, where historically, maybe they have not been divided 50-50.
Yeah.
So that's a very controversial legislation that the governor just has a few days to either sign it or it'll become in law, or similar legislation has been vetoed 3 times already, but by a different governor. This law also does a lot of changes to alimony. It eliminates permanent alimony, which I guess the payors of alimony would be very happy recipients.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of criticism that it's a little too harsh for the recipients.
That's always kind of tricky, right? As far as the dividing of the money and the alimony. Karen, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
50%. How does that work?
Well, and everybody always thinks, I get half of this and half of that. But when you start looking at dollars different than a retirement dollar, because retirement dollars have taxes on them, and a house is different than this, and so you start trying to whittle it down and figure out what's half, and then everybody always wants more than half so they can tell their girlfriends at the beauty salon, I did better than you did, and
Crazy.
but the problem with this bill that's sitting there is it's a one size fits all situation, and you can assume that not every family is a 50-50 kind of family. You have parents that are firefighters and pilots and athletes, and they're gone, and this whole concept of this, so there's a lot of people on both sides of the fence there. But they're kind of log rolling it into this alimony concept too.
Sometimes it really is cheaper to stay married. I mean, it really is.
That's how we
one sleep in the
started.
basement, the other one upstairs. Who knows?
It's true.
Stevens and Stevens are located right in West Palm Beach, and they can be reached at 561-430-4350. Now, as far as family law is concerned, what are some of the more contentious issues regarding the entire clan, so to speak?
I mean, the worst things you deal with are allegations of sexual abuse on kids,
Yep.
or physical violence, and there are some of those accusations that are true, and there are some.
It's got to be tough to prove.
Some
though,
that are
isn't it?
not true.
He said, she said.
Horrible.
Yeah.
It was just horrible situation on either side, and the trauma that leaves not only the parties and the children, but anyone involved in that case. It affects us all. It's like drinking poison. It's very toxic.
Yeah, domestic abuse is tough.
Yeah, it is, especially when the kids are involved. But, a lot of these cases are intense, especially during the pandemic when everybody was stuck at home with stay-home orders, and there was a definite increase in domestic violence between partners and intimate spouses and stuff like that.
And I would think there's an increase in that, too.
Yeah.
We talked about,
Certainly.
divorce somewhat facetiously based on the pandemic, but certainly being locked up together. I mean,
And a lot of it went unreported because kids weren't going to school, and usually that abuse gets reported by seeing bruises, and teachers are mandatory reporters, and we took that away for a year and a half.
So I can only imagine, yeah.
And plus, just the psychological impact that has had on our society. We don't even know how just taking a year and a half off of total socialization, depending on how old you are. I mean, look at us, how it impacted us. We went crazy, but imagine if you're a developing 2-year-old or 6-year-old or 13-year-old and you have all these needs that just aren't being met. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to be dealing with that for years to come.
It's tough, especially, and again, kids staying at home, being homeschooled, it has its issues, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, load of issues.
Absolutely.
And,
there's also a lot of pros to it, too. So there are two sides of every coin.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you had family. I mean, I think that in some cases it probably reinforced a relationship, or those parents that didn't really do the homework were now doing it and teaching it, But yeah, those cases that have sex abuse issues, child abuse issues, the ones, and as you're sitting there as a practitioner, going through the facts, dealing with witnesses, even the evaluators, they're just icky and horrible.
Is
and really
it tough to even go to the kid itself, maybe an 8-year-old, and try and get a storyline out of that?
We're not professionals that talk to children.
Right.
So, our cases, we may have some psychologist or
bring them in to try and help the case. Huh?
We try to minimize the children in court. In fact, there's rules and statutes that prevent that. But, oftentimes there are situations where someone is advocating and speaking for the kid. So,
if you think about it, the courtroom is probably the worst place to kind of resolve these disputes, because you have two attorneys that are trained to be zealous advocates, which basically means win at any ethical cost. So when you pit that kind of decision making, and you realize that these issues could probably be dealt with better if we just took it out of the courtroom, got a good therapist, worked through the issues. But the system is set up the way it is. And for those folks that cannot agree,
somebody will figure it out, i.e. the judge.
That is unbelievable.
We will guide them through it, and 9 out of 10 cases resolve before you get to a judge, but some get presented to a judge. We
don't have jury trials like everybody always sees on TV. Family law is not a jury trial. It's solely the judge making a decision. And we always tell clients, that person that sees you for an hour and a half of your life in a robe has no idea what's best for your children to the best of their capabilities. So anything that you can resolve outside of that courtroom, especially about children,
the best way, right?
Yeah, that person's not going to know where they should sleep for Christmas.
Yeah, you're right, because when you think about it, the judge is really just there to do his or her job to basically pass a judgment.
Yeah, and you think that judge wants to micromanage the issues in your personal life, or hear all your dirty laundry.
Yep.
Not the case.
Courts are not just for the airing of grievances.
Hey, a couple of great folks here, ladies and gentlemen. Stevens and Stevens, Maritime Family Law, right in downtown West Palm. 430-4350, 561-430-4350. A couple of minutes remain. Karen, if you had to do it all over again, would this be the field, knowing what you are going through today and all that
Yes.
in society?
Yes.
Would there be any change? I mean, you want to be a lawyer, imagine, but would you change?
No,
the
I mean,
category?
I definitely took a convoluted route to get here, but I think that one thing that Eddie and I both have in common is we very much love what we do. So no, I wouldn't change it, and I think that
What's the best thing? What's the greatest thing you take out of a given day, if you could?
When I know that I've done something for a client, I don't even need to thank you.
Straightening their life out somewhat.
But I know I left that client in a better place than the moment that they set foot in my door the first time, and I know that I've given them tools and skills to be a better parent or better person and deal with this. I mean, that's the biggest reward. You don't always get a lot of thank yous. This is not the kind of field, because a lot of anger and animosity with clients. They get angry at everything. But just knowing that I did my best to get them out of a bad situation, I mean, that's a reward in and of itself.
Eddie, you too? I mean, is there something maybe if you had to turn the clock back, you'd go in another area here?
No, I mean, I've been doing this 25 years. I show up every day because I love helping people. And I think of it like being a fireman. I get to pull people out of horrible situations. And when you do that, the adrenaline rush that you get, is like none other, because you've changed someone and you've helped them in ways that no other person could have done. So that's a pretty cool rush. It's just an incredible opportunity to help other people.
That's good stuff. Been fun.
Thank you.
Really has. Stevens and Stevens, spelled differently, by the way. Eddie with E-P-H-E-N-S, Stevens. And Karen, by the way, she has to throw another little wrench in as far as first name. Not Karen, K-A. We go with the C-A-R.
I know.
She's not a Karen.
Yeah, and especially after all that meme started, I'm glad I'm a
You
C.
should have had the Stevens PH. But it is because the odd spelling of the first name.
Right.
That's just because everyone thinks PH is the proper spell.
Eddie and Karen Stevens, ladies and gentlemen, they are the marital and family law extraordinaire, as far as I'm concerned, in West Palm Beach, and they can be reached at 561-430-4350. And it's a firm that practices exclusively marital and family law with a tremendous approach, and that is to resolve, when all is said and done, the high conflict, high net worth issues, and really about achieving the best outcome for each client. And I think that's really what it's all about. And they're located right in downtown West Palm.
Thank you so much for having us.
Come back again to the Titans, won't you?
Who knew talking about this stuff would be so fun?
This is fun. Thank you for having us again.
Absolutely. Jay Oliver here, Titans of the Palm Beaches, ladies and gentlemen. We'll do it again next week. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday.